Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I've only said this a million times. I am your host Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. I also help you discover new wines in different areas and all that, so it's very exciting to do this. And I love wine, I love the wine world, I love talking about it, I love sharing knowledge with other people. Actually kind of got a little humble experience in the wine department today when I was working. I didn't understand a particular word on a label, and I had a customer have to tell me what it meant. And of course I'll never forget that. But you know, no matter how long you've been in the wine world, you know, you're never going to know everything, and you forget stuff. It happens. It's all right, okay? Anyway, we're going to talk about, again, Washington wines, drink for Washington. We're going to talk about the diversity of Washington wines. And it is incredible how many different varietals they can do in Washington State and do it quite well. Of course, the climate is perfect. It's a desert climate over in eastern Washington. And they have the mighty Columbia River, which are able to irrigate many of the vines that they plant there. And because of that, you get a lot of different wines that do quite different grape varietals that do quite well in Washington State. And I've talked about this many times, but it's fun to kind of look at these different things that they do in our state, in Washington State, that really highlight its diversity. And we have three wines here that you would not necessarily think of coming from Washington State, but they do. I think of, besides these, Tempranillo, Cinsault, Grenache, the list goes on and on, Albarino for whites. I just can't think of all the different varietals. Malbec, they do Malbec quite well. Washington State does, of course, Cab, Merlot, all the basic ones. But we're going to look at three. And a question I have for you at the end of this video, if you feel like commenting, and I hope you do, each of these varietals has a home that it's well known in. So as I drink these and talk about them, I'll try not to drop any hints. What country are these grapes most known to be grown at, and where they're produced the most? Now, one of them has two pretty popular homes in the world, and you can hopefully come up with that one. Well, I'll tell you which one it is that has two. So let's get started right off the bat with the Sinkind Cellars 2019 Gamay Noir Estate Grown Columbia Gorge. So the Columbia Gorge is the AVA, or American Viticultural Area, where this is going, and that's a fairly new appellation in AVA in Washington State, actually. And this is James and Poppy Mantone's winery. Shout out to them. I actually went and visited them a few months ago, and very nice people. And James is a great winemaker. And now we will talk a little bit of these wines are a little bit more expensive. And the reason for that is when you talk about grapes that are not grown a lot in the, you know, we grow a lot of Chardonnay, a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, a lot of Cab, a lot of Merlot. Those are wines that they produce a lot of in Washington State. So when you start getting to more eclectic varietals that are not known in this country, you realize that they do not grow a lot of them. So when you don't have a lot of fruit, the prices go up because, you know, the cost of getting that fruit, or even if you're growing it, like in this case, James Mantone grows Gamay. It's still very expensive because it is only a small amount. This is rolls in at $40. So all of his labels have something to do with geology, which is kind of cool. And this is the Gamay. So the question that you need to answer, or if you feel like commenting, I hope you do. I'd like to see a lot of comments on this episode. Is where is Gamay most famous at? What part of the world, and in what area of that part of the world is it most known for? So the color on this, now I realize that I have a very gold curtain over there. I'm going to change that, I think, or find some way to neutralize that a little bit. This is fairly dark. Gamay isn't always known to be dark, but remember, we're in the New World. The other place that Gamay is grown, and this is probably the only hint, and you probably already figured it out, most of you know the answer, is in the Old World. Let's see what we get on those. I get a little bit of dried herbs. I'm getting like a red beet component coming through. Raspberry, getting some raspberry, maybe a touch of strawberry as well. And plum keeps popping in my head. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I'm smelling plum. So I get a combination of raspberry, strawberry, plum, and just a tiny hit of cranberries. That's what I'm getting. So let's see what we get on the palate. Oh. Spicy on the backside. Nice raspberry, plum, and cranberry notes, but the cranberries are riper. This is a really cool wine. I mean, Gamay is one of my favorite grapes. And I like it because it really goes nice with a lot of different foods. And this is lighter bodied, no strong tannins on this, but it blasts your mouth with that raspberry, plum, cranberry notes, a little red flower component coming through. James would like to hear that. I even have just a tiny, tiny, tiny kiss of tobacco underneath. This is a beautiful wine. Now it's $40. I know that's not chump change, but this is, I don't even want to think about the holidays yet, but this is a good holiday wine. Goes with a lot of different things. This would be great with ham, chicken, salmon. This would be beautiful with salmon. Ham, chicken, turkey, all of those would go nicely with this because of the lighter tannins. This would be a beautiful wine with salmon. Just saying. A lot of times producers of Gamay in the country I'm talking about, in the area I'm talking about, will use carbonic maceration. And this doesn't have that. Although James will probably, yes, I use carbonic maceration. No oak on this one at all. If there is, it's certainly fooling me. But I like this wine. It's very, very well made. Now, this is about as close to the old world as you're going to get from the new world. I just love this wine. So well made. So delicious. Just front to finish. Good balance. Nicely structured. And that structure means that it's not flabby at all. It doesn't, the fruit it's held up and really well made. I love this wine. I'm going to go straight up A on that. I think this Gamay Noir is fantastic. I think it's worth all of $40. You'll be hard pressed to find Gamay from too many other wineries. James, I think he told me he's even planning more of it, so he's very excited about that. Now, let's move on. W.T.Vintners, Mourvedre 2015, Boucher Vineyards. Now, Dick Boucher is one of the most respected wine grape growers in the state of Washington. So if you see Boucher Vineyards, a lot of wineries are seeking out his fruit. His son, I think, is starting to get involved deeply in the grape growing business, which I'm sure Dick is very excited about. I don't think I've ever met Dick Boucher. I would like to. Now, Mourvedre, also known as Monastrell. So there's two countries where Mourvedre, Monastrell, does really well, is very famous from. And what two countries are those? And where in that country? Well, the other one would be a little bit tougher because they do grow it all over that country. Look at the color on this. It's very dark, what you expect from Mourvedre. Mourvedre is used a lot of times in blends to give darkness to the wine and structure. You certainly don't use Mega Purple in Washington. We talked about that last time. Oh, you talk about raspberries. This is like raspberry pie on the nose. Tobacco, raspberry pie. That sound good to you? There's a little bit of currant coming through as well. So you got raspberry currant pie with a splash on the side. A little tobacco, you sprinkle it on there. Dynamite, right? I don't know about that. All right, let's see what we get on the palate. So that raspberry is there, currant, kind of takes over, the darker fruits take over. I would say more on the black raspberry side. And there's a little bit of an alfalfa hit right on the back of the mid palate into the finish where it gets a little spicy. This has good balance, good weight across the palate. Again, this is, I'm going to show you the label like dork that I am. I didn't show you. This is 45 bucks. W.T.Vintners Mourvedre. I love Mourvedre. This, now the licorice is coming through on the backside. This has a long finish. I mean like a long finish, which is really cool. So there's an herbal component that really is strong on this one. And that alfalfa, I always think of dried alfalfa because when I was a kid I raised guinea pigs, and we always had alfalfa in the cage, and that smell translated into what you feel in your mouth kind of comes through on this one. It's not off-putting at all. This has good acidity, so this baby will age for quite a while. I actually pulled this out of my cellar. It was hard for me to do that. I think this might be my last bottle, but that's okay because I really want to talk about the diversity of the Washington State varietals. And Mourvedre is a really cool wine, and I like it a lot. And like I said, they use it a lot in blends, especially in the one part of the world that I hope you can make a comment on. It is blended a lot. The other part of the world, not so much. They do it as a straight up varietal. So solid wine, good color. This would stand up really nicely to a beef dish, blue cheese hamburger, steak, any of that. Of course, steak is a beef dish. This would be good with lasagna, I'm thinking. So yes, Mourvedre from W.T.Vintners. Beauty of a wine. I mean, and the tobacco kind of lingers on the backside. Like the finish on this is ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous. I'm still tasting it, and that's very cool when you're talking about wine. The finish means a lot to people. You know, like they say, sometimes the only thing you remember is the last thing, and the last thing will be the finish, right? The tannins are lighter on this one. This isn't a heavily tannic wine by any stretch. It's almost, it's a little bit bigger than the Gamay, but not much. I would venture to say you could have this with salmon as well. But it's big enough to stand up against a beef dish. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to go straight up A on that. Solid wine. W.T.Vintners. Boucher Vineyard. Mourvedre. And well, you know, talking about fruit source is very important. The better the fruit, the better the wine. And that's, you talk to any winemaker, he's saying he's trying to get his hands on the better fruit because every winemaking process starts in the vineyard. And I've heard that a million trillion times in my tenure in the wine world, and it's so true in what I found out about it. That's why good vintages are so nice, because a lot of the fruit that comes out in a good vintage is good fruit. Let's move on. Now we're talking Sangiovese. Now there's quite a bit more Sangiovese made in Washington State than there used to be, let's say 8-9 years ago. So that means more people are planting it. This is the Cassis Smith, if I can see that, Cinqueale Sangiovese from Wahluke Slope and Rosebud Vineyards, Wahluke Slope, Washington, 2015. And this rolls in at $24. So you notice the dollars go down as the fruit becomes more available. So there's a little, like, it's competition, right? So this vineyard's growing it, this vineyard's growing it, that vineyard's growing it, and so you can, you know, barter a little bit and get a better price. This is one of Charles Smith's labels, and Cinqueale means wild boar. So where is Sangiovese grown the most, and where in the world do you find a lot of Sangiovese? You probably know the answer to that one already. Let's see what we get. First of all, color, a little darker on this one. Now, there are some winemakers that think there are some varietals in Washington State that they shouldn't be doing there. And I don't know, I have not found, and the reason for that, okay, let's just take just a second. The reason for that is because they don't believe it expresses the varietal the way that it should be expressed. Like, let's say, for instance, in what is Sangiovese like in this country I'm talking about that you are going to mention in the comments? Is it supposed to be just like that country? I don't think so. I think that Sangiovese in Washington State should be Washington State Sangiovese. And I think that Gamay in Washington State should be Washington State Gamay, as I do feel about Mourvèdre. Now, I will say James Mentone came pretty close to Gamay, where it is grown a lot in another country. But it's still New World. So you can't possibly exactly match New World with Old World. It's just not going to happen. Now, some come closer. I know Idiot's Grace does a really nice job. Cana's Feast does a really nice job. These are both wineries in the Gorge area. They come pretty close to Old World, but it's still not exactly like that. So I disagree with some of these winemakers that kind of, stick their nose up at some of these guys doing these varietals in Washington State that they don't think match the varietal characteristics in another country. How do you feel about that? Do you think that Sangiovese from Washington should be like Sangiovese from the Old World? I don't know. I don't think so. Let's see what we get on the nose. This has a little funkiness on the nose, which is cool. All us wine guys like a little funk. Like a little funky strawberry action. So it's strawberries, but there's a darker fruit underneath that I can't quite hit. Maybe it's a bark, kind of like strawberries with a little bit of a bark action, beauty bark. I'm sensing maybe a little black plum underneath as well. Let's see what we get on the palate. So again, not super light, it's darker. Strawberry, plum, big fruit, but balanced out with good acidity and some nice tannins. I like the tannins, give it a little grip on the backside. So big up front, then it calms down a little bit and you get more of a balanced wine. I say big up front because it has a lot of fruit. So the strawberry, plum, maybe even a touch of raspberry. And it's also balanced out by a really good dose of tobacco, which I really like. I'm always big on tobacco and wine. I don't know why. You guys probably know that already. I'm pretty transparent when it comes to that feeling. Almost has a cola thing coming through on the backside as well. Solid wine. I mean, okay, I will say, this is nothing like Sangiovese from blank. Not at all. But I like it. It's very good. I think a lot of you would like it. It's a fair price, 24 bucks. I think Charles Smith does a nice job with this wine. And even though he says Italian inspired, he knows, Charles knows, he's not going to make a Sangiovese like they do in blank. Period. But he's making a nice one. I know a lot. This is a crowd-pleasing Sangiovese. Yeah, those tobacco notes come through. Nice, seamless cross palate with that little grip of tannin on the back end. Solid wine. Good finish on this one as well. That little cola, almost a root beer hit on the backside is really cool. I like this wine. I think a lot of people would really like this wine. And of course, it's the least expensive of the bunch. But if you ever want to try Sangiovese, there's quite a few. I know Jones of Washington does one. W.T.Vintners does. These are ones I have at the store. I know Helix does one. I don't carry it, so I'm not sure if Chuck Reininger still does a Sangiovese. But anyway, there are a few to choose from. It's really cool to kind of try the different varietals of Washington State. It is very diverse here. It's a cool place to live. I like it. So I'm going to go A minus on this Sangiovese. It's well made, just a hair, yeah, I could go A, I'm going to go A minus A on that. Very solid wine. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. I hope you're enjoying these episodes. I enjoy doing them, and I hope you're learning something, and I hope you're finding some great wines. And Washington State is great production. Like I said, this is the second Washington Wine Month, so I don't get quite as excited about it as I do in March, but that's okay. It's okay. I don't mind doing this. I'm hoping to do, I got a couple episodes coming up just to give you a preview. I want to do some big boys in Washington State. I mean, we're talking the high dollar wines of Washington State. And it's going to be cool because the same quality that you get from Washington is about a third of price in Napa Valley, California, which is probably the most well-known appellation in the United States. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Tell your friends about this. I hope you're enjoying it. You keep watching, and I will keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.